And welcome to another edition of our treatment of the International Sunday School lesson. Today's lesson is entitled, Love and Obey God. And it's for December the 2nd, 2018, winter quarter, lesson number 1. And it's taken from Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter, verses 1 through 9. Okay, a little background information. This is right before Moses is passing on, and it is right before the children of Israel start the conquest of the Promised Land. Now, you remember back to your Bible stories how that the children of Israel had complained and murmured and revolted and that kind of thing. And the Lord had said that none of this generation was going to enter into the Promised Land. So they wandered around in the wilderness for those 40 years. And this next generation had grown up. And the only two that were still left of that original generation was Joshua and Caleb, who, if you'll remember back, they were the two who had went and gave a good report when they spied out the land. And this, the older generation had died off, and Moses was about ready to be called into his reward, and the reign was going to be handed over to Joshua. And this is part of the last exhortation, so to speak, that God would allow Moses to give to the children of Israel. This particular section of Scripture is part of that section, the last exhortation that Moses was giving to the children of Israel before they embarked on the conquering of the Promised Land. Okay, well, let's go ahead and start in. Deuteronomy 9, 1 through 2. Hear, O Israel, you are to cross over the Jordan today to go in to dispossess nations greater and mightier than you, cities great and fortified up to heaven, a people great and tall, the sons of the Anakim, whom you know and of whom you have heard it said, who can stand before the sons of Anak? So Moses is laying out the groundwork here, letting the children of Israel know. God is having him letting them know that the people they were going up against were a very hardy people. They were very strong. They were a very strong people, and many of them were very tall, very large people. And so it was much more challenging back in those days to go against people who were generally a lot larger than you than it is nowadays. Nowadays, when you're sitting in a tank or you've got an automatic rifle, the size is not as important as it was back in the days in biblical times when you had to go up against somebody with a club or a spear or a sword or a knife or a slingshot. If they were a lot bigger than you were, they had a very, very distinct advantage. Now, if you're sitting in a helicopter with 50 caliber machine guns on it and missiles attached to it, the physical size doesn't matter an awful lot under those circumstances. But this is not the kind of warfare that they were going to be engaged in these biblical times. This was the kind of warfare where you went with a club and a spear and a sword and a knife, and you physically fought with the other person. And if you were giving away 100 pounds to somebody, that has a lot of significance. And believe me, I know whereof I speak. Some of y'all that know me know that not as a profession, but for the local parks department, I was a martial arts instructor for about 5 years, and the taekwondo coach for the local city and parks department for a couple of years. And so I have a little bit of experience, and I am here to tell you, people that say that size does not matter have never fought somebody who had a lot longer reach than you. Reach matters in any kind of physical situation. Reach matters. Weight matters. And these people of Anakim, they were generally they were big people, and they just genetically were big people. So this was a situation, and the Lord was reminding the children of Israel that that's the kind of people they were going up against. They were going up against people who were numerous. They had resources, and they genetically were strong, tall people. And that's who they were going up against. Okay? Third verse, know therefore today that he who goes over before you as a consuming fire is the Lord your God. He will destroy them and subdue them before you. So you shall drive them out and make them perish quickly as the Lord has promised you. Now, what God is saying to the children of Israel through Moses is that God is going to fight for them. God is going to cause different things to happen to their enemies that is going to have a profound effect on them. And against all odds, they are going to be successful. And the reason for their success is not because of their intelligence or their strength. It's because God's blessings upon them, and God is looking out after their interest. Okay? So we see here where God is promising them that He has their interest in heart, and He will fight for them. That God is going to be a consuming fire. Okay? Now, fourth and fifth verse, do not say in your heart, after the Lord your God has thrust them out before you, it is because of my righteousness that the Lord has brought me to possess the land, whereas it is because of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord is driving them out before you. Not because of your righteousness or the uprightness of your heart are you going in to possess their land, but because of the wickedness of these nations, the Lord your God is driving them out before you, and that he may confirm the word that the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Now, this has got one of the most important principles that is all through the Bible. Absolutely, from the very start of the Bible in Genesis, all the way up to the last couple of chapters of the book of Revelations. Every place you turn around in the Bible, there is one overarching theme throughout the Bible when it comes to what we should do and how our attitude should be. God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble. Do not, under any circumstances, think more of yourself than you should. Don't be consumed with your education. Don't be consumed with your intelligence. Don't be consumed with your physical beauty. Don't be consumed with your righteousness. Don't be consumed with your standing in the community. Don't be consumed with the friends that you have. Don't be consumed with the family you're from. Do not be arrogant for any reason, because there's one overarching theme as far as the way we should act, the way we should interact in this world. And that overarching theme is God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble. If you sit there and you look even back to the original sin in the universe, when Satan said, I will ascend and be like God, the motivating force in him was pride and arrogance. Why is everybody worshiping God? They should be worshiping me too. If you look at mankind, when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, and that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and you read the reason why they ate of that tree was to be able to be a big shot and to know things. And that was one of the motivating reasons why they ate of the tree of the Garden of Eden. Poor old King Saul, he sat there, and when he started out, appeared to be a pretty humble man. But when it came down to when that moment when he was utterly rejected, the thing that he was most concerned with was whether or not the people that were with him would see him offering sacrifices with the prophet Samuel so he could put on airs and be a big shot. When Nebuchadnezzar looked like Nebuchadnezzar was going to do fine, and he looked out over the city and he said, "Look at this Babylon that I have made in my majesty." And God struck him down right there. And he went out in the field and ate grass like an animal for a couple of years because of that. God knocked him off his high horse. If you look at Ananias and Sapphira, how that their motivating reason why they lied about that property that they sold was it wasn't really the money. They wanted to give the impression they had gave all that money and that they had done the right thing and that everybody should look at them just like they were big shots. It was that self-righteousness in wanting to put on airs that got them in trouble. And they were both struck down dead that day. You get time and time and time again throughout the entire Bible. It is that pride that is so destructive. And this is what is something that should horrify all of us and make us very afraid and mindful and watchful of our own actions. If there is anything that is the easiest for people inside the house of God to commit, if there's any sin that is the easiest for people in the house of God to commit, it is self-righteousness. Putting on big shot airs and looking down your nose at everybody and forgetting all the stuff that we've done in our lives before we came to Christ, or stuff that we had done when we had backslid. And people will forget that. And they will be so hard on people for things that they have committed themselves. And they'll have that self-righteousness. And we will, all of us, there is such a natural tendency for us to do that and to project into other people things that we have been guilty of ourselves and be so self-righteous. And that pride, that arrogance will destroy our spiritual life. Not one time, not sometimes, but all the time. God resists the proud, but give us grace to the humble. That is universal truth. That will cause us to slide and slip and go into darkness quicker than anything is that arrogance, pride, and self-righteousness. And all of us have that tendency, and it is so easy to fall into that. Okay, let's go on. 6 through 9. Know therefore that the Lord your God is not giving you this good land to possess because of your righteousness, for you are a stubborn people. Remember and do not forget how you provoked the Lord your God to wrath in the wilderness, from the day you came out of the land of Egypt until you came to this place. You have been rebellious against the Lord. Even at Horeb, you provoked the Lord to wrath, and the Lord was so angry with you that he was ready to destroy you. When I went up to the mountain to receive the tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant that the Lord made with you, I remained in the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. I neither ate bread nor drank water. So, we see here the importance. And I don't mean dwell on how don't dwell on your former shortcomings, but we should never forget where we came from. We should always remember where we were when Jesus found us. The sins that we were guilty of, the attitudes that we had, the weaknesses and failings that we had. Don't get so wrapped up on yourself that you forget all of these things. We desperately, if there's one thing that we need to remember more than anything in these verses, is the fact that we need to remember where we came from and not be arrogant. Okay? Now, a couple of concluding thoughts, just to summarize and reiterate some of the things that I've said. First off, when the Lord makes a way for you to be successful, to have good success, don't be wound up on yourself and think that it's your strength that gets you this, or your smarts, or your money, or your influence. Give God the credit for it. The other thing is, too, just to reiterate what we've said today, is that we really need to be humble. We need to remember our failings, our shortcomings, and not be self-righteous toward people. Well, friends, good Lord willing, I will be with you again next weekend.